Hey guys, welcome back to Hoffman Supply Chain Advisors. I'm Dave Hoffman, and today I want to talk to you about what it means to be a shipper of choice, okay? And for you small businesses out there, it's basically in the eyes of the carrier, right? What makes them want to work with you? So you might have a reason you want to reach out to them, right? To haul your freight, to move your freight to your customers, but there's also an expectation that they have of you so that they want to work with you. So let's dive into a few of these examples, okay? So first is, what type of appointment scheduling and hours do you have at your warehouse? So let's talk about appointment scheduling. I've seen many companies that will use email and an Outlook calendar for scheduling pickup and delivery appointments. And while that might work in the beginning, as you grow, as you expand, right, you're gonna want something a little more sophisticated. You might want to invest in a yard management system. And they have those out there where, there's services and software where you can pay a monthly fee. It's nice, it's organized. It's clear you can put it up on a board in your warehouse, and it's really just, it gives the carriers the ability to go in and schedule the appointments at their convenience versus having to call the warehouse or email the warehouse and wait for a response. They can do it right then and there. But you, as the shipper, you need to know what your hours are. You need to know how long it takes to load a full truckload or an LTL shipment. You also maybe want to do a little experimenting in your warehouse where maybe you take a forklift and you go to the closest point, the middle point, the furthest point, and kind of get a gauge of how long it takes to go with a forklift. So when you're loading these trucks with certain items of inventory, you know how long it's going to take to load, and kind of get you an average, right? Maybe you have a high, a medium, and a low, and try and hit that sweet spot, okay? I also mentioned hours. So in the trucking industry, a lot of carriers, when you look at full truckload and LTL in the mornings, let's just say 6 to 12 o'clock in the morning, right? They're making deliveries, okay? That's when they're unloading. That's when they're maybe going to get something to eat or doing some maintenance on their truck, and they want to start picking up in the afternoons, and that's what I found in my career. So typically you could argue pickup hours maybe would be from 1 to 6 p.m., okay? Some of these shippers, these larger shippers, these manufacturers, they ship 24/7, which is good. Some carriers, depending on where they're going to be empty, it works for them. But this is a good time to assume that, hey, I know I'm going to get carriers that are available and ready for another load between 1 and 6, okay? Let's next talk about driver accommodation. And what do I mean by that? So many of these shippers, a driver will arrive there, and they might want to use the restroom. Do you have a restroom that's available for them to use? Do you have maybe a water fountain so they can get something to drink? Those are the types of things that, while they seem small, not a big deal, it matters to carriers. I mean, these guys are on the road, these men and women are on the road for hours on end, and just something as simple as having a bathroom, a water fountain, maybe a room with a couch where they can just kind of sit down and maybe do some work or take a load off their feet. It goes a long way. It really does when it comes into pricing. I can tell you that. Next, let's talk about drop trailers. So there's a difference when loading in transportation, what we call a live load, where a truck backs up to the door, and as the driver's sitting in that cab, you're loading as the driver's sitting in that truck, okay? And then there's drop trailers, which is becoming more common, and shippers like this, carriers like this, where a driver will arrive, he'll back into a door, he'll unhook his trailer from the tractor, and he'll drive away, and you can load it at your convenience. So it doesn't make your warehouse personnel feel rushed. It doesn't make the driver feel like he's losing downtime because he's sitting there waiting for the trailer to get loaded. And so what we found in the industry is sometimes these drivers, they drop the trailer, they pick up a full trailer that's already been loaded, and they can kind of keep moving and going. So this way it doesn't slow them down. They don't have to worry about their hours of service as much because every minute they're moving, they're making money. Every moment that they're sitting and not moving, they're losing money. So think about drop trailers. And again, not every facility is going to have it, but maybe you're renting a warehouse, or maybe you're going to look to acquire additional warehouse space. Does it have the parking space? Does it have the number of dock doors to do drop trailers? That's something to consider and think about, okay? Parking. This is something that's really big in the truck industry. So I can tell you that truck drivers, they're regulated by hours of service. So when they're coming up, when they need to shut down, parking is a big deal for these men and women. I've seen them parked in dangerous locations up and down interstate highways. There are truck stops that are dedicated to truck parking. So again, if you have parking on site and you'll allow a driver to park, that goes a long way too. It might seem like something small, but just knowing that it's a place that's safe, that's lit, it's off the highway where traffic is not, that's a great feature to have, okay? Let's talk about lead time. So when we talk about lead time, you as a shipper, you have customers, and your customers give you lead time on when they need product, right? So same thing, you're going to try and give that carrier as much lead time as possible. And the reason you want to do that is it gives them time to plan their equipment. It gives you the opportunity to get the best price, and it's a win-win. But what I've seen happen, and particularly it happened during COVID and the pandemic, where everything just came back online, demand shot up, everyone was ordering things left and right. We were giving carriers short lead time. And what that does, it puts a strain on the system. The carriers their trucks, their network is not where they need to be. So now you have to find additional trucks, other carriers. And when you give short lead time inside that 72-hour window, and I'm going to say 24 to 48 hours, you're going to pay more. And there are studies on the internet. Maybe what I can do is I can show, give you guys a few websites, but they have like these dot plots and show how much more. And I can tell you just in my career, what I've seen on average, you might be spending an extra, let's say 2 cents a pound, or maybe an extra $400, $500 on a truckload. That's a lot, and it adds up. So again, if you can give lead time, that's great. If you can get your customers to behave in a way that they're giving proper lead time, that will help you save money in your transportation. Now, if the customers are paying the freight, again, it's on them. What do they care? I mean, they should care. But if you're paying the freight, you want to do as much as you can to reduce that cost and give proper lead time to your carriers, okay? Paying carriers. Okay, here's another thing. For you smaller shippers, what I would recommend and what I've done in the past is we kind of push you guys towards, thinking about using third-party providers, okay, 3PLs. Because what they can do is they're a little more liquid in some cases where they can pay these carriers. They have programs called Quick Pay, whereas if a carrier delivers a load, they can submit their paperwork and they can get paid within, 72 hours, something like that. But what a lot of shippers will do when they work direct with the carriers themselves, sometimes they might have terms that are 30 to 45 days pay. That's a lot of time for a carrier to float that cost. In addition, these carriers are also paying for fuel, okay? So for a lot of them, especially these owner-operators, that's a lot of money to float. So if you can be great about paying them, or if you're working with a 3PL, they will get those carriers paid much faster, and that helps them keep them running. It's just a nice alternative, and the way they set it up is you can have a list of all your bills consolidated to make it easier to pay versus an invoice every time for every carrier. It's a great way to organize it. So just make sure you want to pay your carriers on time, because again, they're small businesses just like you, okay? And then last is the data piece. So data, what I found a lot of times is you have some of these companies where they're emailing carriers information of origin, of destination, of pallet count, of weight. So the carrier has to go through that. They have to read the emails, or maybe you're picking up the phone and you're telling them these things. Invest in a TMS. And again, I would say for the small companies, right, that can be pretty expensive. Work with a 3PL. A lot of times they will set it up. They will implement it for you if you're willing to sign a contract with them and do some work with them. The data is well worth it. I've seen it. They have data that helps you make sense of your transportation spend. It helps you make better decisions. Really without data, you're kind of in the dark, but invest in it. And especially for carriers, right, you're working with, you can get them set up on EDI. The information comes out of your ERP automatically to them, gives them all that information. So again, and if you need to make a change in your system, that change can then be pushed out. Your data can be pushed out into a 3PL's TM to the carrier. So again, you have you, the TM, and your carrier, and you're all interconnected and you can talk to each other. So again, these are just some of the things that I think really make a difference becoming a shipper of choice. It goes a long way with your carriers, and you can see it in your pricing. So consider this. If you're not sure, talk to someone like me who can help you get some of these things set up. And thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like.